We have more breaking news. Another potential purge at the Justice Department. Two prosecutors are on leave now after pursuing a prison sentence for a pardoned January 6th rioter who was convicted after carrying illegal guns outside former President Obama's house 2 years after the Capitol attack, so unrelated to January 6th. Joining us now is MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian. Ken, what more are we learning about this decision and the case at the heart of it?
Good morning, Anna. This appears to be another example of the attempt by the White House to rewrite the history of January 6th, because what appears to be at issue here is this sentencing memo. These two prosecutors referred to the January 6th attack as a riot. They referred to the defendant here as one of the rioters who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. And that is the kind of language that the White House doesn't like, because they are arguing that that was not a riot on January 6th. And so, as you said, this man was convicted of a separate offense. He was pardoned by Donald Trump for his role in January 6th, but then arrested because he brought illegal guns to Barack Obama's house in Washington, D.C., and he was convicted of that and also of threatening to bomb a government building. And last night, these two line prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. wrote a sentencing memo explaining his conduct and calling for the judge to impose a 27-month prison sentence. But they also included that paragraph about the Capitol riots. And they were locked out of their offices and devices. They were walked out of the U.S. Attorney's Office. They've been placed on administrative leave. And the news of this move is reverberating around the Justice Department. And it's another warning that you can't, as a prosecutor, tell what you believe is the truth about the January 6th riots without having some risk to your future and your job on it.
Ken Dilanian with that latest reporting. Thank you.
Established by Congress to assist the president on design and preservation in the nation's capital. All of the members who were on the commission had been chosen by President Biden. They will need to be replaced with new appointees from President Trump. The purge comes as the White House prepares to present plans for several ambitious construction projects, including an archway at the entrance to the city and the president's $300 million ballroom that saw the tearing down of the entire east wing of the White House to make room for it. Joining us now, senior editor at Intelligencer at New York Magazine, Margaret Hartman. Her new piece is a deep dive into the plans and costs of the White House ballroom project, asking and answering questions like, is this effort illegal? Who actually owns the White House? And is President Trump paying for this venture at all? Where do we begin?
Yeah,
Margaret, you choose.
So Margaret, first of all, you said this actually, a lot of us were surprised. One day, he's talking about it. The next day, the East Wing is completely torched, taken to the ground. But you say he's been talking about this for a while.
Yes. Well, he's been talking about this specific build since at least June. He announced it on Truth Social, and I started following it and writing about it. And then in July, he had Carolyn Levitt gave a whole little press conference about it, but it was only about 3 minutes. She waved around some artist renderings, and she released a little information on it, but it still wasn't clear the scope of the project at the time.
So let's talk about who's paying for the project, because you said, don't worry, no taxpayer money is being used here. Who actually is funding this? And then the next question is, what access does that provide those people?
Right. So he's always said that he's paying for it and presented it like, oh, I'm this magnanimous builder, and isn't this such a great thing? But he's had a history of doing this in the past, where he presents as his own charity when he's actually kind of funneling donations from other people through his own charities. So who's actually contributing? They just released a list of 37 companies and people who are donating. So that includes Google, Apple, Lockheed Martin, Howard Lutnick, the Winklevi twins,
the twins.
People.
There we go. We got twins involved in the project.
Yeah, so
Comcast, we have to point out.
Yes.
Comcastic.
Yes. So they just released that list after pressure when people saw the photos of the East Wing actually coming down, being reduced to rubble. But we don't know exactly what Trump is donating. We know he gave the money he won from a settlement with YouTube after they they banned him for his J6 commentary. So we don't know. Is that all the money he's giving? Is he giving more? What did these people have worked with the government? So do they feel pressure that they had to donate? So we don't really know yet.
So I think what took a lot of people by surprise is just how fast this all happened. It was a matter of days and the East Wing was gone. And a question that I keep getting is people are wondering, like, well, he's allowed to do this? So walk us through the process as to, I mean, this is the people's house.
Yes.
And seemingly on a whim, the President of the United States said, let's get rid of half of it.
Yes.
That's okay?
So it's kind of symbolic of everything that's been happening. We're relying on norms a little bit. Like nobody had the imagination to think like, well, what would happen if, Obama wanted to bulldoze the West Wing? Like nobody thought that would ever come up. So we have all these laws and it's supposed to go through a series of review by preservation committees. So conveniently, Trump appointed his own top advisor to lead one of the main preservation committees in July. And his name's Will Scharf. And he said that they don't have any jurisdiction until construction starts. Right. So apparently Trump can just knock down anything
he can tear down what he wants.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they only get involved at the construction phase.
Okay. So is it just a ballroom or is there more to it? Do we know? Is there something above it? Below it?
There is a bunker below. That's why they actually built it originally. They started building it under Teddy Roosevelt's administration. And then I believe under FDR's administration, they were added the office buildings over the top because there's the bunker where they whisked Cheney down there on 9/11. And so we don't really know. That's part of the reason people were so confused. They originally said, oh, well, the East Wing offices are going to be modernized, but we'll also have this ballroom here. And it's just illustrations. They're pretty, but he's just gesturing at illustrations.
The twins and donors like Comcast, do they require any information in exchange for apparently funding this?
I don't think so. They got some kind of agreement or contract that referred to the Donald J. Trump ballroom. He's denied it'll be named after him, but maybe, people
So the question is, too, are we going to see the plans? Are the American people going to see the plans? Is Congress going to see the plans? Are we going to know about the bunker?
Yeah.
Are we going to know everything that's going to be in I will say, the people's White House?
Well, Scharf said that they're eager to review at the appropriate time. So who knows what the appropriate time is? This should have actually taken years. In August, there were still reports saying, well, he says construction is starting in the fall, but how could that possibly be? Because just building a fence to the White House or adding new lines to a tennis court would take a year as it worked its way through this multi-board review process. And so how is he just going to start construction? Well, it turns out if you don't really follow that process and don't ask permission, you can just start bulldozing the East Wing and it's gone.
What do we know, if anything, about the scope of larger plans that have been involved and talked about? For instance, there's been talk about the president wanting to build a memorial bridge as you head towards Arlington National Cemetery, a huge Arc de Triomphe
there.
Yeah. What do we know
it's
about
already
this?
been nicknamed the Arc de Triomphe. So he actually had little models of that he was showing off to ballroom donors at a dinner, thanking them for their contributions.
And then asked, do you like the small, the middle, or the large? I like the large.
Yeah,
what a shock.
I like the large.
We like the large, sir.
Yeah, so...
There's tears in her eyes.
Sir. Tears from his eyes and said, sir, we like the biggest one.
Yeah, so he has a lot of plans to kind of Mar-a-Lago-tize the whole Washington area. We've seen him going through the White House and adding gold to everything. He paved over the Rose Garden. He's now branding it as the Rose Garden Club, similar to the Mar-a-Lago Club. So, yeah, it's unclear when he's going to stop. He really seems to want to leave his mark on the space in a way he did in his first administration.
And as you report, there is this National Capital Planning Commission that's supposed to approve federal construction, especially at somewhere like the White House. Since that's been completely ignored, the concern now is there anything in his way for whatever the next idea is if he wants to tear down a monument or something?
I mean, certainly we have a Congress that I think could do something or pass laws, but would they? I don't think so. So it seems he's found a loophole here, and there's really no one to stop him unless there's some kind of huge public outcry that he responds to. And I believe there was a poll that showed 50% of Americans are against this. So
The new deep dive into the Trump Ballroom Project is online now. Senior editor for Intelligencer at New York Magazine, Margaret Hartman, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to your mom as well.
Thank you.
Hi, Marge.
Mika got you some merch.
We got
Complete new
a mug.
yeah.
Thank you for watching.
America the Isolated. There was a time when America could make one phone call and half the world would listen. That era feels distant now. Under Trump, the United States isn't leading the orchestra anymore. It's playing solo, louder and more off-key than ever. What he calls strength, the world reads as desperation. India is frustrated by his tariffs. Europe is exhausted by his unpredictability. Latin America is resisting his bullying. Even traditional allies like Australia are watching every handshake twice. Trump has managed to turn a partnership into suspicion. He calls it independence, others call it isolation. The truth is, power doesn't vanish overnight. It fades as trust erodes. For decades, America's greatest weapon wasn't its army, but its reliability. Allies could depend on Washington's word, and markets could depend on its stability. Now, every tweet and threat shakes that faith. Trump treats diplomacy like a boxing match. There has to be a winner and a loser. But in geopolitics, that thinking breaks everything. Nations stop cooperating out of fear and start planning for life after you. That's exactly what's happening. India is drawing closer to Russia and Iran despite the pressure. Europe is investing in defense systems that don't depend on the U.S. umbrella. African and Asian nations are exploring new financial alliances with China and the BRICS bloc. The more Trump shouts, America first, the more the world quietly answers, then go ahead alone. Even his wins come wrapped in unease. Isolation isn't just a diplomatic problem, it's a psychological one. Once a nation starts believing it's surrounded by enemies, it starts acting like one. Every criticism feels like sabotage, every question like betrayal. Trump's rhetoric feeds that paranoia, a story where only he sees the truth and the rest of the world conspires against him. The result? The United States is more divided abroad than ever. The American brand, once synonymous with opportunity, now carries the weight of unpredictability. Investors hesitate. Students rethink visas. Allies explore alternatives. The world isn't anti-American, it's anti-instability. And under Trump, instability is the only constant. Empires rarely fall with a bang. They fade through arrogance. America's decline won't come from defeat in war, but from self-inflicted solitude. Trump wanted to make America feared again. He succeeded, but fear is a poor substitute for respect, and isolation is a terrible definition of greatness.